Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Dr. Diane Sanchez, and this chapter is reviewing workers' job and job analysis in your Human Resources Management class. Welcome. Today's webcast is going to go over explaining how the workforce is changing in unpredicted ways, identify components of workflow analysis, define job design and identify common approaches to job design, discuss how telework and work flexibility are linked to work-life balancing efforts, describe job analysis and the stages of the process, and then of course list the components of the job description. So let's jump right in. What is happening in the world today? First of all, it's important as human resources practitioners that we constantly monitor the workforce profile. So we go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we look at census data, and we look at the labor force participation rate. That's the percentage of the population working and seeking work. And the reason why that's important is we want to see if there's shortages, for example, in nursing. Huge shortages right now. Our aging population, baby boomers retiring, skill gaps in technologists and physicians and nursing in the healthcare industry. And the work-ready credentials, who's really got the skills to do the job. And of course, generational differences is always very, very important for us to consider. I mean, in the latest survey data, it is estimated that 29% of all of our labor force is 55 years and older. And that is going to be a huge deal for us, especially in knowledge transfer. But more importantly, it is estimated by 2020 that the Gen Yers will be almost 50% of the workforce. So we've got to constantly be looking at the workforce profile. Now, we also look at the nature of work and the jobs. What is the work? Effort directed towards producing or accomplishing results. So we need to look at that. We need to look at the job, grouping of tasks, duties, and responsibilities that constitute the total work assignment. So we look at those two things when we are conducting job analysis. So we look at the labor force, and then we look at our organization's jobs, because many of the jobs have been compressed. With the downsizing in 2008, more employees have taken on more responsibilities. Therefore, a new job analysis needed to be done because our jobs got bigger. And so those are the ways we look at it, work and job. And then we look at the workflow, the study of the way the work is inputs, activities, and outputs. And this next chart is really excellent. So let me take the example. After 2008 and companies were compressing their workforce, laying off people, we had to go back in and do complete job analysis. And with that, we needed to look at how the workflow was happening. What materials and information and data did we need? What equipment did each position need, and what kind of people, skills, experience, and availability. Availability mean externally as well as internally. And then the work, what is required to produce the output. And then the output, what comes from the work, measured by quality and quantity. So like I said, job analysis is usually done when we've compressed a lot of work. Now let's talk about job design and job redesign. Job design really refers to organizing tasks, duties, responsibilities, and other elements into a productive unit of work. And then we look at influences of performance in certain jobs, especially those where employee motivation can make a substantial difference. We also look at job design can affect job satisfaction, since people are most satisfied with certain job elements than others. We try to identify what makes a good job becomes critical so that we can reduce turnover and absenteeism. And then we look at the job design that can impact both physical and mental health. Problems such as hearing loss in large plants, backaches, leg pain, and then stress. That is something that we need to review in the job design. And then job redesign is taking an existing job and changing it to improve it. So, some characteristics of jobs and people. If we look back, and there's a lot of debate about this, on the left side of this slide, it talks about job characteristics that management can control, and on the right, people characteristics management cannot easily control. So on the left, we can control tasks, authority, responsibility, policies, procedures, tools, variety, time requirements, social opportunities, working conditions, and stress. And stress is debatable because from a work perspective, there might be work stress, but then people have personal stress at home and so forth. So on the right, it is motivation, things that we as management cannot control. And there's a little bit of debate about motivation. We can't control people's characteristics of their interests, their energy level, their personality variables, their satisfaction predisposition, their physical characteristics, their honesty, conscientiousness, and intelligence. So I challenge you to look at this and really critically think, do you agree with this chart? Now, types of employees that we have. We've got full-time employees, which is usually 40 hours and over. Part-time employees, which is under, depending on what company you work for, maybe under 20 hours. Independent contractors, those are your 1099s. And then you've got temporary workers, usually from a temp agency that comes in and fills in for individuals. Contingent workers are not a full-time employee, but a temporary or part-time worker for a specific period of time and the type of work. Usually those are independent contractors or they're temporary workers, but they're not a full-time employee. All right, and then we have person fit, job match, person job fit, matching characteristics of people with characteristics of the job based on the fact that people will differ on what they consider good or bad jobs. So, my classic example of a person job fit is Southwest. Their belief is they hire for personality, and they think that they can teach everybody the technical skills. So that's really an example of a person job fit. They're hiring, the person's personality, enthusiasm, entertaining on the planes, and then they're teaching them the technical skills. All right, let's jump into job design. There are 3 ways that we can approach job design. We can design jobs to enlarge them, broadening the scope of a job by expanding the number of different tasks to be performed. So an example of that would be, you have a receptionist, she only answers the phone, and now you want her to do the mail, and you want her to, I don't know, do other tasks like making sure the lunchroom's clean and so forth. That would be an example of job enlargement. Job enrichment is increasing the depth of a job by adding responsibility for planning, organizing, controlling, and evaluating the job. So examples would be, giving the employee an entire job rather than just a piece of it, allowing the employee more flexibility to perform the job, increasing the employee's accountability for work by reducing the control, expanding assignments, for new tasks and special areas of expertise. So, for example, if you have a receptionist that has a great personality and great with customers, you may want to expand or enrich her job by giving her assignments in customer service. And then job rotation is a process of shifting a person from job to job. And we do this when we are considering high potentials, or in HR, for example, if you start out in recruiting, we put you there for 2 years and then we rotate you to compensation for 2 years, then we rotate you to benefits. That gives the employee a wonderful experience of the different jobs in human resources. So that's an example of job rotation. Now, characteristics of a job to consider in designing. These are all of the elements that the important design characteristics of a job. So it is skill variety, task identity, task significance, autonomy, and feedback. So when we're looking at every aspect of the job, we ask these questions. Skill variety. To what extent or to which the work requires several activities for completion. For example, lower skill variety exists when there's an assembly line worker performing the same 2 tasks repetitively. Okay, so we're looking at that kind of variety. Then we're looking at the task identity, extent to which job includes a whole identifiable unit of work that is carried out from start to finish. So what does that mean? For example, when a customer calls with a problem, a customer specialist can handle the stages from maintenance to repair to ordering to resolve the customer problem. That's kind of the task identity section. Then task significance, impact the job has on other people. So for example, police officers may experience more fulfillment when they're dealing with a real threat rather than just merely doing their day-to-day function. If their task significance happens when there's a real threat and they're protecting a human being. Autonomy is the extent to an individual's freedom and discretion at work and its scheduling. So can the employee do a lot of, have a lot of freedom in their job and discretion at work, and they can kind of do their own schedule. We look at that. And then the kind of feedback, the amount of information employee receives about how well or how poorly they're doing on the job. So it's important that we take all those characteristics of the job to consider when we're designing the jobs. And this is the job characteristics model. So all the things on the left, really enrich the jobs. Skill variety, identity, task, and on the right, which is really good, it focuses on the psychological things that happen. So if we enrich jobs with skill variety, task identity, and task significance, the employee may experience more meaningfulness in their job, which is really helping with motivation, performance, and satisfaction. So if we enrich jobs for autonomy, the employee is going to feel that they have experienced responsibility. They're going to feel, great, I have more responsibility, which leads to motivation, performance, and satisfaction. And then feedback, right? Psychologically, the employee needs feedback, and therefore it's going to give them knowledge of the results that they're attaining or not attaining. And again, that should help with motivation, performance, and satisfaction. So very much love this chart. Now let's jump into teams, the types of teams that we have. So we have special purpose teams formed to address specific problems, improve work processes, and enhance the overall quality of products and services. And what jumps to mind, if any of you saw Apollo 13 and you remember that they put a special team together to reduce the CO2, I think it was, the carbon monoxide that was happening, that's a special team. That's an example of going in, you know, improving a process, and then boom, getting it done. Then you have self-directed teams composed of individuals who are assigned a cluster of tasks, duties, and responsibilities to be accomplished. And, you know, a lot of companies have quality teams, or they have employee engagement teams. You know, they have tasks, duties, and responsibilities that have to be accomplished. And then virtual teams, which is very much growing, global teams composed of individuals who are separated geographically but linked by communication, and they're working together, and most of them are global. So what's the benefits of teams? And I'm very much a proponent of teams, and I think that companies more and more are becoming knowledgeable of the benefits of teams. And basically it's improving productivity, increasing employee involvement, greater co-worker trust, widespread individual learning, and greater employee use of knowledge and diversity. Again, companies are interested in motivating employees, enhancing their performance, and enhancing their satisfaction. And studies show that work teams help with all that. So, you know, ways we can help our employees is telework. You know, that's a big deal for us, is helping our employees to work less and less, maybe in an office, and more virtually. The advantages of that is it's less expenditure for employees. It saves commuting time. It improves their productivity. Less need for workspace, helpful in reducing turnover. Disadvantages is the possibility of working more hours, obviously, when we're all connected. Lack of face time, you know, not being in an office, can make some employees not feel engaged. Perceived lack of control and physical monitoring. And then, of course, income tax laws. Some of them do hit us. All right, so what's work schedule alternatives that we can consider in engaging our employees? Well, shift work. You know, a common work schedule design is shift work. Many organizations need 24-hour coverage, so they'll do 12-hour shifts, and then maybe 24 hours off. You know, a lot of police and fire do that. A compressed work week. Full week's work is accomplished in fewer than 5 8-hour days. So like I said, some companies do 4 days of 10 hours, or 3 days of 12-hour shifts, putting it in a compressed work week. Part-time schedules. You know, part-time 20 hours a week. is good enough for some employees. And then job sharing, which I love. 2 employees perform the work of a 1 full-time job. So for example, I had working moms that just wanted to be home with their kids, and one mom would come in 8 to noon and work in recruiting, and the other mom would come in 1 to 5, and they would split the work in recruiting. So it's a wonderful way to keep your employees engaged and keep them on a part-time basis. And then flex time. Really just letting them have a variety of hours during the day, maybe one day 10 to 9, or 10 to 6, sorry, or 7, 9 to 3, whatever works. All of these alternatives really help with work-life balance. Flexible scheduling really relaxes the traditional clock control of the employees while still covering the workload. It really improves quality of an employee's personal and family life. And we're always looking for work-life balance options, employer-sponsored programs designed to help employees balance work and personal life. And those kinds of programs really help us recruit and retain employees or people who need the flexibility. And more, applicants are requiring this kind of flexible scheduling. All right, back to job analysis. So what do we do in job analysis? What are we trying to gather? We're gathering and analyzing information about the content, context, and the human requirements of a job. And all of this aids us in planning, recruiting, selecting. It gives us accurate information about equal employment opportunity matters, and it's the basis for compensation, training, and employee performance. Now, I love this chart because this explains it in one chart. Here's how we do job analysis and what it leads to. So we use in job analysis questionnaires, interviews, observations, logs, and diaries. When we're looking at a job, those are kind of methods that we use. The sources of data can come from employees, supervisors, managers, and of course HR, which is our job analyst. And it's conducted by usually a job analyst, somebody in compensation, or an outside consultant, or a supervisor and manager. So that's where we start. Now, from job analysis, 2 things are created: a job description and a job specification. Now, sometimes the job description and job specification are combined. But really, the purpose of the job analysis is to understand the work activities and behaviors, the interaction with others, the performance standards, what's the financial and budgeting impact, the machines and equipment used, the working conditions, the supervision given and received, and the knowledge, skills, and ability. That's all in the job analysis. And then we can create a job description, which most employees get, and a job specification. And all of that information is used for HR planning, selection, compensation, training, performance management, health, safety, and security, employee and labor relations. We use it for everything in human resources. So it's really important that we do a very good job on our job analysis. And the typical divisions of HR responsibilities in job analysis, on the left is what HR does, and on the right is what managers do. So HR coordinates the job analysis, writes descriptions and specifications for the review by managers, periodically reviews job descriptions and specifications, reviews managerial input to ensure accuracy, and may seek assistance from an outside expert for difficult and unusual analysis. On the right, this is what managers do. Complete and help complete job analysis information, review the job descriptions and specifications to maintain their accuracy, request new analysis as the job changes, uses job analysis information to identify performance standards, and provide information to outside experts. Okay, so there's really two types of job analysis. First is task and then competency-based. So if we're conducting a task-based job analysis, which is the most common form, and focuses on tasks, duties, and responsibilities performed in the job. So task, a distinct, identifiable work activity composed of motions. Duty, work segment, composed of several tasks that are performed by the individual. For example, if one of the employment supervisor duties is to interview applicants, one task associated with that duty would be asking job-related questions. And then responsibilities, the obligations to perform certain tasks and duties. The second way we do a job analysis is competency-based. And, some people do both in their analysis, task and competency-based. So you may see that as well in the job analysis. But the competencies that we've based analysis looks at individual capabilities that can be linked to enhanced performance by individuals and teams. And we break it into technical competencies, which is specific knowledge and skills of employees, and then behavioral-based competencies are things like customer focus, team orientation, technical expertise, results orientation, leadership, conflict resolution. And then those kind of identifies competencies that drive performance. And then we also look at influences individuals and organizational behaviors. What happens? So, these are the stages in the job analysis. We plan. So, prior to the job analysis process, we need to gather the information like I talked about from managers and employees. Then, we prepare for and introduce the job analysis. So we're going to identify the jobs and what kind of methodology we're going to use, or we're going to review existing job documentation and communicate the process. Then we conduct the job analysis, which is gathering the information for the analysis data, review and compile the data. Then we develop job descriptions and job specs, which we give a draft, and we review those drafts with managers and employees. And then we finalize the job description and recommendations if we're enhancing the job. And then we maintain and update the job descriptions and job specifications. So we update those job descriptions, and we periodically review all jobs. So as I talked about before, the ways that we do it is we observe employee diaries, work sampling, we interview, we have a job analysis questionnaire and a manager job analysis questionnaire. This is the typical areas covered in the job analysis, duties and percentage of time spent on each, supervision, decisions made, contact with other people, physical dimensions, and job holder characteristics. This is a great chart because this really is what the typical areas are covered in a job analysis. The Department of Labor has also a great resource where we can get outside data, and that is called ONET, and it has information on 800 occupations classified by industry. It now contains the dictionary of occupational titles that has hundreds of job descriptions already written for you. So it's terrific. The government, that's where your tax dollars are going. So it's wonderful. Gives us statements of importance, relevance, and frequency, the training, work experiences, and education, and different interest, work values. Terrific resource for HR practitioners. So, behavioral aspects of job analysis. And this is really looking at the incumbent's emphasis, focusing on the core duties, the necessary knowledge, skills, and abilities. The things that we need to look at is making sure that employees or managers are not inflating the jobs or the job titles, because when you inflate jobs and job titles, it affects compensation, it affects the hierarchy of the job, it just really affects things. So we've got to be really careful when we do job analysis. And then of course when we're doing job analysis, employees and managers get anxiety over that. They fear that the analysis may limit their creativity and flexibility by formalizing their job. So employees can fear that. They'll fear that pay is going to be taken away from them, that their job will get demoted or deflated. And then managerial concerns, obviously, is that their workload will be limited and their jobs will be limited. So, we've really got to look at the behavioral aspects of the job analysis and really communicate why we're doing what we're doing so that the fears can be dispelled. Now, what's the legal aspects of the job analysis? Well, this is very, very important because the Uniform Guidelines on Employee Selection Procedures, which is in your book, makes it very clear that HR requirements must be tied to specific job-related factors if employers are to defend their actions as a business necessity. So a couple of laws that we have to be concerned about is the Americans with Disabilities Act, which we have to define in the job spec or job description, the percentage of time spent on each task, the frequency of the task done, the importance of the task. We have to define the essential functions of the job. And so that's a big part of the job analysis. And then we also have to be concerned about wage and hour regulations. For example, we've got to determine, is the job exempt or non-exempt? Exempt from overtime? Is it a salaried job or is it an hourly job? And we have to comply with the Fair Labor Standards Act to make sure that that the job is classified appropriately, that the employee should or should not get overtime. And we've got to do the primary duties test, which is, is the job really at the level that it should be, either exempt or non-exempt? So, as I said, job analysis for ADA, the essential functions of the job. And what are the marginal duties that are part of the job? We also have to do that. What are the essential ones and what are the marginal ones? And as I said, we've got to discuss percentage of time that's spent and the frequency. So after we do the job analysis, we go into a job description and a job spec. So many companies combine the two. The job description is identification of the tasks, duties, and responsibilities. The job spec is the knowledge, skills, and abilities an individual needs to perform a job satisfactorily. And then we've got to also make sure that we have performance standards, indicators of what the job accomplishes and how performance is measured in the key areas of the job description. And your book has a terrific sample of a job description, which really incorporates everything. I highly recommend you look at it. Again, job description components is the job title, the reporting relationships, the department, the location, the date of the analysis, the general summary, the essential functions of the job, and the job specs. So, I hope you have found this webinar informationally good for you. If you've got any questions, by all means, put it out on the discussion board. Thanks for attending.